Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Networking and Marketing Made Simple. This is Scott, along with my beautiful co host and wife and co business owner and co everything, Nancy.
Hello, hello.
So, this is also an episode for the Entrepreneur Rescue Mission. So, we love to do these dual episodes. And this actually spurred today's episode is, leaning into doing the inner work and investing in yourself and your business. This actually spurred from an old client and friend of mine that Nancy's going to kind of talk about a little bit, but there are four core things that we really want to talk about in today's episode because what we're finding is that, yes, there's a lot of inspired entrepreneurs out there that really want to achieve all the things, but there's a lot of people that are not succeeding in entrepreneurship. And then that's not to say that they don't have the skills, they don't have the means, they don't have the drive. There's just some inner work that actually needs to be tapped into and taken care of. So Nancy, why don't you give some context behind how this topic came about?
Yeah, so well for me, it was so funny because, I think we do such a great job planning ahead, right? I think we actually started our 2024, marketing plan and really what we were going to launch and focus on throughout the year. I think we started that in October, so I felt really good, October, November, December going into January as far as business plans, right? What we were planning on focusing on. But what happened, I just thought was so, I don't even know, like eye-opening, I guess, kind of like, it was just such a huge shift for me. As soon as 2024 hit, as ready as I felt going into it, that first week, right? Week one of January hit me like a ton of bricks. And I say that because it felt like energetically, everything that I had pushed aside or had put off kind of reared its ugly head and like bubbled to the surface. And, Scott, unfortunately, as business partner, husband, and, all those things, he definitely got to see a lot of my frustration. And I'm typically a pretty even keeled, happy, nice person. But, month one of January was really rough for me because I felt like it was a culmination of all these projects that I had been putting off, all these things that kept triggering me. I just felt like it all kind of like a big, train just kind of came at me all at one time. And it wasn't until I came across, it was probably Thursday of that week, that I came across one of Scott's old clients, a post that she had made. And it really, really resonated with me. And in fact, it resonated with me so much that we actually talked about it with our expert authority mastermind members as well on one of our mindset calls. And I'm going to read you, the part of the post that really spoke to me. But anyway, this particular client, her name is Sarah Swain. So she is actually, I want to make sure I give full credit. She is the co-founder of a company called MYM Business Community. And, you can follow her at Sarah Swain on Instagram, but it truly clicked with me. And so the part of the post that really resonated with me was business owners that don't focus on or prioritize actively healing, physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, will struggle in their business more than usual. Unresolved pain and suffering will present in ways that compromise energy and stunt forward movement and growth. There is no longer a choice but to commit to healing. So 2024 will be largely based on the work within. And so just reading that, I got thinking and I'm like, oh, this isn't just a, culmination of all these. It's these cyclical things, right, that keep happening. And for some reason, that first week, everything happened all at once, right? The projects that I had been putting off, the procrastination that I had been doing, the, overwhelm and the fatigue of making decisions all piled up. It was just literally everything that had kind of triggered me, last year or the previous years that I just didn't deal with all bubbled up to the surface. And so whenever I read that, this is the year, right, to do inner work, it just really resonated with me so much. And, I think it's such a good message to, not only share transparently what I am doing and what we're doing, a little bit differently this year to really face it head on, but what we're also teaching and helping others to do as well. Because, I think there isn't one person, on here. And if you're watching and you're perfect, okay, well, this message is not for you. But I don't think there's one person, who doesn't go through things like this and, doesn't have issues that might be cyclically kind of bubbling up. And, it's so incredibly important to do that inner work on yourself because, it's not just business, it's life, and whenever you address those things that keep happening, really it's like this domino effect that can only benefit you, right? And improve things. So today, I just really wanted to kind of go through the four things that I really focused on. And again, I'm throwing it out there because it might help you. If it does, please, definitely comment, whether it be if you're watching this, on YouTube or if you're checking it out on a podcast. Would just love to hear your thoughts because I know everyone's different, but these four really, whenever I sat down and I said, all right, it's time to do the inner work, I'm going to get started and I'm really going to look these things in the face and I'm going to break them down and see how, I can obviously improve things for the year ahead. It just was a game changer already, right? We're not even, I guess we're week 3 of January and I'm already making huge strides and I'm really putting my feet down on some things that I had gone back and forth with the previous year. So the first big focus for me that I really looked at my whole whirlwind situation and tornado. And the number one thing for me was unfinished projects. Right. Things that we have been getting ready to get ready on, things that we've been putting off, optimizing sales funnels that we have in place. We have conversations every single month, around our KPIs and what's working and what's not. But as far as actually making improvements and strides or doing overhauls, right, with our high ticket funnels and things like that, it had just been put on the back burner. It wasn't a thing that we just got done. It's been one of those things that I've been chipping away at little piece by piece. And it's been unfinished. And so for me, that was such a big trigger. And so to kind of counter that and really help with it, well, number one, I said to Scott, I let my frustration out that, hey, we've got a lot to do here in this area. And I also mentioned it to my team. And one thing that I just thought was so wonderful, and again, I just want to do a big shout out to our copywriter Charlize and our operations, manager Christy. Both of them were like, "Let's get on a call and let's go through what needs to get done. Let's divvy it up and let's get it done." And so we did that, and that was actually last Wednesday. I went through, what's working well, what needs work, what do we need to stop doing, what are some things that we need to, maybe shift or tweak or configure. And we went through everything and they took notes. We wrote down action items. And what I have to say is at the end of that call, just getting some wheels on that project and getting it delegated and getting some of those things again that have been circling the runway for a while, really with a plan in place felt so good. Right. So my challenge to you guys out there is, what projects do you need to get done? What are those things that you really have been putting on the back burner you need to just take care of? And the recommendation there is, put some action items in place, right? Put some things on the calendar, block off some time to get it done. It can really make a huge difference. So that is my number one. I also want to kind of throw a little caveat in there though, too, is, there might be projects that you've been circling for a while that just don't even need to be on the, agenda. Like they don't even need to be a project that you need to get done. It's just something you've been wanting to do. Guys, be okay with putting those on the shelf and maybe not treating them as such a priority if it's not going to directly affect your business or obviously take some of the stress of these most immediate needs off. Sorry, Scott. I really just went off on that
No,
one. But,
I'm still here for anyone wondering. I am still here.
yeah. So anything you want to add there, but unfinished projects is a big one for me.
Well, something that always comes up for me in regards to this, if it's not getting written, if it's not written down, it's not getting done.
Yeah.
And I think this is I see two problems, kind of twofold here. Number one, people, and as entrepreneurs especially, they have a lot of great ideas, right? It seems like every day an entrepreneur is coming up with a new innovative course or program or this, that, or the other, but it ends up staying in your head. And it's important just to kind of write those things down. I remember, I know this is like something that I shared with Nancy a long time ago when we started dating. Um, there's a great audio called "The Strangest Secret" by Earl Nightingale. I haven't said his name in so long, but he was phenomenal. He mentored Bob Proctor. So Bob Proctor mentored under Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale mentored under Napoleon Hill. So I mean, you want to talk about a lineage of great minds. So The Strangest Secret, it's a very small book, but it's about a 45-minute audio that you can find on YouTube. And in The Strangest Secret, there's an exercise that Earl makes people go through where you take an index card and you write 5 ideas down. And you do that every day for an entire year. 5 ideas that you have in your head. And he says, if you compound that over a year, it's almost 1,700 ideas. He said one of them is bound to turn into something successful. Now, I'm not telling you right now to come up with 1,700 ideas, but what I am telling you to do is if you have something that you want to dive into, get it out of your head and put it down on paper. Now, the other thing is this. What comes up for me is that I don't know if it's this busy or hustle mentality that a lot of people still have. Like if they're working on 18 things at once, they feel like they're doing a lot. But if you're diverting your energy, 100% of your energy to 20 different things, that means you're really only giving about 5% of your energy to each one of those things. And it's never going to work. And the thing is that, and this is something that Nancy and I tell our mastermind members all the time. And every one of our mastermind members, they get a goal sheet. There's like big, stretch, hairy goals on there. We tell them, do not even look at your second goal until your first one is accomplished. So the big thing that we want to stress, the reason why people end up having a ton of unfinished projects is because they spend a week on one, they get uninspired because that shiny object is not so shiny anymore. So they want to feel invigorated. They want that, that dopamine rush. So they want to dive into something else new. And then before you know it, you have a room full of unfinished projects. Nothing feels better than completing a task. And Simon Sinek talks about this all the time. He writes a little on a piece of paper. He writes down all the things that he needs to do, and he checks these things off. He said in this one podcast that sometimes he'll forget to write something down that he had to do that day, and he'll go back, write it, and then check it off after he did it, like going to the grocery store or picking up the dry cleaning or something like that. But don't think that Nancy and I don't have unfinished projects, because we do. Every single business owner has unfinished projects, but it's a matter of taking it just one project at a time. And then before you know it, you're going to have massive, massive traction in what you're doing. Now, the second thing that kind of populated in this post that inspired Nancy and myself is something called decision fatigue.
It's not in that post. These are things that I'm working on this year.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, forget that. That wasn't in the post at all. So
it's funny. I send Scott the notes and he translates them how he likes. Yeah.
oh, why? I thought it was just something that populated out of this. But again, so these are things that Nancy is working on, and I will chime in and how I feel about them. So Nance, go with number 2.
Yeah. Yay. Anyway, so yeah, guys, just as a reminder, right? It's the 4 things that, really came out of the inner work, that popped up for me. But like I said, I want to be transparent and see, if it can help others as well. So the second, I found myself really triggered by was decision fatigue. Okay. So decision fatigue is basically, making tons of decisions and being exhausted mentally, and if you think about how many decisions you make on a day-to-day basis before you even sit down at your computer to do work, it's a lot, right? It's like, what am I going to wear? Oh, I got to do this, or am I going to choose to have this for breakfast? And what am I going to, blah, blah, blah. And what were the big priorities for the day, right? And you start to think about all the decisions that you're making. And for me, I realized that even some of the small decisions were really it was just stacking up too much. And so by the time I actually sat down in front of my computer, I was already exhausted. I was kind of like, ugh. So a couple things that I wrote down, and again, it's new practice for me for the upcoming year is to, let's make some decisions like on the forefront before the week even begins so that I can take that off the plate and really again free up that mental space. And so for me, I actually grabbed my planner, which is this awesome, wonderful planner that I have here. And I started actually mapping out a couple things, right? So I do this on Sundays now. In fact, I've done it for the last 2.5 Sundays, 2.5 going on 3. And what I do is I actually look at my schedule for the week ahead. Okay, what's going on, right? Doctor's appointments. I look at, any coaching calls. I look at any training calls that I have just so I can mentally prepare and see what I've got coming up ahead for the week. And then number two, I have started mapping out meal planning. Okay. So, Scott and I, and I'm sure many of you guys who are listening, I mean, Scott and I, we run our businesses together. So we're in this together all the time. So by the time we're done and we check out at like 4 o'clock every day, it's like, oh, what do you want for dinner? Oh, I don't know. Right. And it's a decision we have to make. And it's kind of like, all right, I don't want to fly by the seat of the pants anymore, trying to figure out what we're going to eat. So what I've started doing now is actually taking a look and, planning out what we're going to be eating each day. And of course, Scott has input on that. But it just feels so good to have that conversation up front because we know, what we're going to be grocery shopping for. We order Instacart. So obviously it just makes it so much easier for that shopping list. We get HelloFresh, which is, a food delivery service. We get that 3 days a week, right? So I know which ones we're going to eat, 3 days a week. And then in between, I kind of plan out some meals that we both will like, and that's it. And I can't tell you, I know it sounds so silly, but just doing that and getting the the meals planned out feels so great. It feels so good. So that's one thing that I have done to help with decision fatigue. And then the other thing that I've started doing is not just mapping that out, but anything as far as like just simple little decisions. So like what to wear. And in fact, I was listening to a podcast episode that Marie Forleo did, and her episode was around like energy vampires and other things. And she was saying how, even planning out your outfit, for the next day or for, the week ahead. She said, keep it simple. If you work from home, like just pick a comfy clothes outfit, it could be leggings and, some slippers, right? I've got slippers on right now. You can't see them. But, plan it out for the week. Get them in your closet, get them all lined up. And again, it's one less decision. If you think about it, didn't Steve Jobs do that? I think he wore like a turtleneck every day. It was just one less decision, one less mental strain, that he had to do each day. So decision fatigue, is obviously the big one. And, taking some time on Sunday to really sit down and plan things out has been a complete game changer. So, Scott, anything before we jump into 3 around
Well,
fatigue?
yeah, again, I think clarity is a big thing for me, and I know for you too. And that kind of bleeds into a lot of things, whether it's decisions or indecisions. But when your head starts to spin and you're not really sure what to do, when to do it, how to do it, um, for me, the longer decisions get delayed, the longer you're going to wait to achieve your goals. And I think this is a very scary thing for people to do because we talk about the fence sitters, and again, Nancy and I have been there. I mean, I remember making some really, really scary decisions, and kind of like when you spend that time in your head weighing the options in your head, should I, shouldn't I, just like buying a house or buying a car, when you're making investments into yourself and your business. Even when Nancy and I started to hire more team members, like, and we talk about the investment and what's it going to cost. And again, a lot of fatigue can actually set in from that. But what I will say is that in 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 whatever you're deciding to do or not deciding to do it quickly. Either make the decision or not, and be okay with both. Like, don't beat yourself up because you put something to the side and you decided not to go through with it. It's not about being in the moment and just saying, hey, screw it, I'm just gonna, push the chips all in. You want to be logical with when you're deciding certain things to do. You have to figure out, okay, is this going to be to myself and my business's benefit, or is it not? Is this going to enhance what I want to do, or is it going to pull me away from what I'm going to do? A very honest conversation I have with people when I'll get someone on the phone and, I've had multiple conversations with them about making a decision, whether it's investing in myself and Nancy or just me or just her. I'll say to the person, like, is this the right time for you to make this decision? Is this going to help you by making this decision? Or is this going to add unnecessary overwhelm and stress to your plate by making this decision? Because Nancy and I have both agreed we do not want to be a financial burden for people. We want to be uh, a financial asset to people where they make a decision to work with us or anybody else or whatever decision they're making. You want that decision to be that thing where there's gasoline thrown on the fire. But to my whole point is it's not pulling the trigger quickly. Get out of your head and get into your heart. We talk about this all the time. Either you have to be decisive about your indecision or your decision. So if you know it's not the right time, I'm not going to do this, be 100% firm with it. And the same goes for pulling the trigger and making the decision to do something.
Yep. Yeah. And, that kind of reminded me of, the importance of core values, and your mission, like your vision and your mission for your business. Because, when you're struggling to make a decision, you want to pass through those filters. Is this, like Scott said, right? Is this what I'm working towards? Is it going to help me, really get forward in the future? And then also your core values, does it fall in line? That helps with decision making when you're more aware. And we're talking about inner work, right? When you're more aware of what your core values are, it helps you make decisions better. The other little tip, and before we move to the third one, is someone once said, if you struggle to make decisions, pretend you're flipping a coin. What do you want it to land on? Like, I think as humans, we like automatically are like, oh, I hope it's heads or oh, I hope it's tails. And sometimes you don't even realize it, like subconsciously, you've already like wished for something, right? You already know the answer. So anyway, the third one, right, that I kind of, realized obviously as the 2024 new year kicked off was the importance of checking in with your emotions. Okay. So that was a big one for me, which, again, I did a lot of work a couple years ago. I became certified in NLP therapy, which is neuro linguistic programming. Did a lot of, just for even my own personal growth, just education around learning how important it is to process your emotions, right? And to make sure that you're not pushing them to the back burner, right? I think we all tend to do that occasionally. And then things start to resurface. Do you start to cyclically feel a certain thing? Do you feel like your energy is drained because you're letting something build up that you're not addressing? Because believe it or not, right, whenever we push things off or we pretend, we're fine and we really aren't, and there's certain things that are upsetting us, it really does drain your energy. It really does affect you in so many other ways. And you know what? It also can culminate. And really, I mean, Scott obviously knows, obviously I had quite a week, my first week of January, but like, it's like everything bubbled to the surface and it was like, bah, and it was like, okay, well, what's really going on? So when we talk about doing the inner work, what are the emotions that you're feeling? Just kind of shine a light on yourself and check in. How are you doing? Am I feeling good? Am I feeling happy? Is there something maybe that's just like, been nagging on you? So one thing that I've really been doing and a big goal for this upcoming year is, feel my feelings, make sure to have open conversation and communication when things are, upsetting me. So emotions, that's number three. Again, it can feel so much better just processing them and looking at them head on. So number four, and Scott, again, you can chime in or let me know if you want to add anything on that note. But number four is, I know this sounds just very simple, but the need to be better. Okay. And I say this transparently. No one is perfect. Okay. And even us, where, again, we work with a lot of business owners. We have helped people, triple their businesses. We've helped people, release books. We've helped people do so many things. But I always say, in fact, I love this quote someone shared with me a while ago. It's an old adage, but it's you can't see the label from inside the jar. And sometimes when you're in it, and you're working on your business and you're doing all the things and you're in your own life, it can be hard to pull yourself out of it and really break things down and realize what needs to get done and things that need to change in order to be a better version of yourself. And so, I say be better. And, I think all of us can think about, what are those things that you're putting off? Are you frequently procrastinating? Are you ignoring things that need to get done in your business? Are you avoiding learning about something that right, could take you to the next level? We call it the ostrich effect, right? It's avoiding those things that might be painful or uncomfortable. We put our heads in the sand and we're like, do it. So the fourth one is just, where can you be better? The best version of you. What is that best version of you doing? Right? There's an exercise in NLP where it's almost like watching yourself on TV, being the best version of yourself. And the cool thing about it is when you imagine that, like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting down at my computer and I am so productive. There aren't 20 tabs open, there's one. And I'm focused and I'm getting things done and I'm not responding to text messages and I'm not multitasking and I am present, right? What does that best version of you look like? Right? I'm listening, I'm paying attention, I'm showing up, I'm doing all the things. Because I can guarantee all of you guys, right? You probably have that guilty feeling, right? It hits like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you've got 20 tabs opening and you're like, what should I be doing again? How can you be better?
Well, I think the other thing is that I think everyone needs to understand that we're all work in progress. Nancy said we're all perfectly imperfect, but we're also all always a work in progress. Um, the peak of one mountain is the valley of the next. So if you think that you're ever going to get to the top, it's no matter how successful you become, you're always going to be wanting more, not more money, just wanting to be better. And Nancy and I were listening to a podcast. It was the guy who wrote the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
FUCK. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beep.
Um, and he said something interesting. He said, globally around the world, there's a greater amount of really good people uh, compared to the amount of bad people in this world. And he said, if you don't watch the news or listen to the news and you kind of just compartmentalize that stuff, again, they focus on a lot of the negatives of life, right? I think, Nancy, I think you were talking about during the pandemic, John Krasinski wanted to start the was it like the Feel Good News Network or something, or the
Yeah, it was so great. Yeah.
but that's the thing. If you think about, yeah, I mean, we all have negative people in our lives, but the majority of the people that we choose to spend time with are the ones that are really good people. But we're always looking to be better, and it's not a competition. But there's something that is said about wanting to continue to work on themselves. I know at almost 45 years old that I'm the best version that I've ever been. And I know before I turn 46, I'm going to be even better. And 47. Every year, I'm striving to be better, not only for Nancy, but for our son and for our family, but for myself too. I post about this quite often on Facebook. There is no better feeling than knowing when you wake up every day, knowing you're a good person. It's a good feeling. And it's not to like, shine or cast a light on ourselves, like, look at us, look at us. It feels good to be a good person because it's nice to hold the door for people or just to tip someone a little bit extra when they've given you good service. And you want to be better in every aspect of your life. You want to be better for yourself. You want to be better for your partner, for your kids, for your family, for your friends, for your business. When you strive to be better, you're going to have a lot of fun on that journey because personal development is one of the best journeys you can go on when you look to improve yourself. And again, there'll be people out there that poo-poo what you're doing. Like they think it'll be a lot of like airy-fairy type stuff that you're doing, right? Like, meditating. And, Nancy knows this. I have journaled every single night that we've been together for almost 7 years. Every day I journal. I write things that I'm grateful for, wins from the week. But there is something to be said about wanting to be better, not wanting to be complacent, not wanting to be mediocre, wanting to be the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah. And not to get morbid, but we got one trip here. around this world, on this earth. And, it's just, it's
Well,
incredible.
Nance, how about the statistic that we read?
What's that?
The the optimistic people versus
Oh,
pessimistic
yeah. I
people.
mean, well, yeah, we had all these like amazing statistics on this
Amazing
podcast we
stats.
were listening to. But it was all around health. And this one in particular was actually one that Marie Forleo did with a doctor. And, he said that they did a big study and they measured like cortisol levels and all kinds of things. And they found that people who viewed themselves and others viewed them as more optimistic type people were so much healthier. In fact, I don't even know how they got the numbers, but they said on average, uh, optimistic and happy people can live up to 7 years longer than people who are negative and, pessimistic. So I just think right there, just mindset wise, right? And I know, right? Again, full transparency, no one's perfect. I continue every single day to strive to be a good person, right? I want to be a good example. I want to live a life where I really lift people up and I help them achieve, all the things that they want to achieve. And I want to be kind. And, do I have a slip up every once in a while or do I have a little moment? Absolutely. Right. We're not all perfect, but I think it's just important, right, to remember that, it's a journey, right, every day. And if we're just keeping it in mind that we want to be the best version of ourselves, that we want to be, continually up leveling ourselves, that's just a great journey to be on. Because when we start to fall stagnant and we don't want to improve and we think that we are the way that we are and that's it, that's when things really start to, kind of crumble, and I've noticed like in business, like think about it, like, when people refuse to learn something new, when people refuse to invest, in themselves and their business to help them move forward, when people refuse, to change the ways of the old, into doing new things. It's just, I see it so often, but we've got to make sure that we're always willing to grow and be better.
So two things, like I love when people, like just what you brought up about, advancements and all that, like what always comes to mind for me is like AI, right? And there's so many people that are against
Like,
it.
ooh.
Well, like there's people, oh, it's the devil. Like, meanwhile, some of the biggest thought leaders in the world, some of the most successful people in the world are embracing it, loving it, telling other people, lean into it. So again, what side of the coin are you going to want to land on?
Optimistic?
Or
Pessimistic.
pessimistic? I mean,
Yeah.
again, if there's anything that I can do to live 7 more years, if it's proven that I can live 7 more years just by being optimistic, you better believe I am going to consistently live with that glass half full, not the
Well,
glass half empty.
yeah, and the other thing I wanted to add too, I mean, on that podcast, it kind of came out that, people naturally want to be around people that make them feel good, right? If you think about like, for anyone who still works in an office or, goes to a job and is around people, I'm sure you guys have experienced, right? Maybe curmudgeons, right? Curmudgeons who are just kind of like, ooh, and it's always like they've got the dark cloud over their head. Think about it, right? What's happening in your body, whenever you're like, coming in and you're not happy and everything's a problem and you're miserable and, you're just looking at things glass half empty. It really does start to affect so many things in your life, and I can guarantee, right? I think with everyone and 2024, man, I'm just feeling it, right? It's the year of that inner work, right? That needs to be done. And if everyone or a lot of people are out there really working on themselves and, wanting to surround themselves with good energy and good people and a good community, the people who are going to get left behind are probably the people who, one, aren't working on themselves, and two, don't have, that positivity and that, better outlook around things. So, in a nutshell, I know we talked about a lot. And again, just to kind of like wrap this all up into a nice package, this was, and, I'm titling the podcast, the one thing, right? The most important thing that we focus on. Do you need to focus on a lot of other things in your business? Absolutely. But I do feel that the most important thing is making sure that you check yourself, right? Making sure that you look inside and you do that inner work because I can promise you, guys, years will keep going by and you're going to cyclically keep learning these lessons until you have learned them and you've actually fixed the thing that needs to be fixed, or you have improved upon the things that needs to be improved upon. So
It's
hope you
exactly
enjoyed
what
this one.
it's what Ice Cube said. Chickadee, check yourself before you
Tickety
wreck
check, check,
yourself.
check. Yeah. So those are the 4 that I'm really focusing on. I'm so curious, like I said. So again, whether it be in this podcast episode, in the post, in wherever you are checking this episode
Email
out
us.
on, yeah, would love to hear, what is it that you are working on, or if has anything that we've gone over today resonated with you. So definitely share that with us, and, wishing, as always, everyone a happy and healthy 2024. And, we're in it, guys. We are in, the new year, and we are cruising right along. And, I just wish nothing but bigger and better and amazing things for everyone in the year ahead.
So as always, please support our podcast, leaves, ratings, and reviews. Let us know what you loved most. Let us know what you want to hear more of. And again, continued success, love, and gratitude. And we'll both talk to you next time.